Hello and welcome. I'm Amy Barrilleaux, and this is The Defender, Wisconsin's environmental podcast. The Defender is powered by Clean Wisconsin, your environmental voice since 1970. So I want you to take a second and picture a Wisconsin farm. I'm going to bet there are cows in there somewhere, maybe grazing on grass, maybe a little farmhouse where the farmer lives. The truth is, that's not really what a typical farm in Wisconsin looks like anymore. Cows are often confined. Family farms are being sold to large agribusinesses. The state lost 10% of its family farms in just 5 years between 2017 and 2022, according to census data, and that's part of a long trend. But I recently met second-generation Columbia County farmer Jerry Cigelske, whose farm looks a whole lot like that idyllic picture we have. Rolling hills, cows grazing in tall prairie grass, and he's been able to stay on that land thanks in large part to income from 4 wind turbines on his property that have been there for the last 15 years. In this episode, I head to Jerry's farm, get extremely close to a wind turbine, and talk with him about grazing, sustainability, and his philosophy on caring for the land. That's right now on The Defender. Have you ever wondered what it's like to stand next to a wind turbine? Well, I don't have to wonder anymore because I stood right between 2 wind turbines during my interview with Jerry Cigelske as we watched his beef cattle graze around us and around the wind turbines. Jerry started off as a second-generation conventional dairy farmer, got interested in grazing, then eventually bought farmland in Columbia County where I met him to talk about cows, grass, and yes, wind turbines. Thank you first so much for taking me out here on your farm.
Welcome.
I know farmers are busy, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a never-ending list of things to do.
So I want to paint a picture of where we're standing. We're standing between wind turbines and how many cows are out here?
About 40 cows with their calves.
So 40 cows and their calves grazing in grass that looks like it's about, 2 feet high?
So, at least that, yeah.
So what prompted the switch, I guess, from being a dairy farmer where cows are, largely kept in a barn and milked to being a grazing farmer where these cows are for beef?
We had a confinement dairy farm, and I was even planning on going to one of those big parlor and pre-stall setups. That was the goal when I got out of college. And then every once in a while I'd read stuff on the articles in farm magazines about grazing, and I'm thinking, well, that makes sense. But all the experts say it doesn't work. And so I just kind of passed it off. And finally I had a feed consultant I was working with, and she had other grazers, and she kept insisting when I was on that rented farm that that was a really ideal farm for grazing too. Lots of hills that were good, and there was even some fences there from years ago. And she said, you could even just give it a try. And so I did, and it took me 3 days to decide I'm doing this the rest of my life. It cut labor costs just drastically. I said the cattle were just healthier. That showed even over time. The cost in so many ways just plummeted because their production went down some too, but with the lower cost, it came out much better.
What to you was the biggest surprise in this transition? If you being a farmer for all your life, the child of farmers.
I think once I started with the grazing, and we started questioning why were we doing all this time harvesting the feed, hauling it in, taking the time to feed them, hauling the manure back out when we could have saved all this. And then it started making me question everything that we were doing as farmers. Is this making sense that we're spending time on this or that? And it's we changed how we did things in the barn and everything because it's like, this is labor intensive. Why are we doing this? Isn't there a better way to do this? And so it just really opened up my eyes to really start questioning things, to do some thinking outside the box, get more creative.
Do you talk to other farmers about this experience that you've had and all the lessons you've learned?
Yeah, I've talked to other grazers. That's the interesting thing is confinement farmers, for the most part, they're committed to their way of doing it, and they're not interested in switching. And in fact, a lot of farmers, like I said, I was told when I was in college that's an old-fashioned way of doing it. That doesn't work. You can't do that anymore. And a lot of farmers had that in their head. My dad and my landlord up there to a perfect example. So they just thought it shouldn't be done that way anymore. It was an old-fashioned idea. They were older, so during the 50s and 60s, when there was using pasture, but it wasn't rotational graze, so it wasn't as efficient. Plus, they got the growth in farm machinery, the growth in controlled feeding systems, and everything like that. That was cheap at that time. Labor was cheap, so they could bring the cows in off of pasture, feed them in confinement, get more milk production, and it paid off good. But then by the time I was farming, costs and all those things skyrocketed. The price of milk was almost unchanged. So in 30 years, it went from, it made sense to go to confinement then, to now it makes sense to go to grazing. But a lot of farmers just, either they're like these really big farmers you see, they're just committed to investing the money to have a concentrated feeding operation to get their return. And so it's either that or we have grazers like me that go the other way, and we're not pushing production, we're pushing for low cost.
So I guess in a sense this is kind of an old-fashioned farm because you have cows out on the land.
But it's done more. It's done more modernly because now we have electric fences. We got portable fences. Like right now, there was a brake wire up here. I just moved that last night down here. It's a matter of 10 minutes, and I moved the brake wire so that they're always controlling what they're eating, and then in just a short time they get done with the pasture, and then we move them off, and then it has time to grow back. Whereas the old way of doing it, they just had permanent pastures, and the cows would eat all the good stuff until it was dead. And the only thing left was bad stuff like weeds. And so now by doing it this way, it's just like harvesting hay basically, but the cows are doing the harvesting.
So it's I guess a smart, more informed take on a practice that's been around for thousands and thousands of years, which is letting cows out to eat.
Right. Yep. With modern improvements, and that's why we have a grazing conference. Wisconsin's had it now for I don't know, was it 30-some years. We go there every year and learn from other grazers about how you can manage better and make improvements on pastures, make improvements on the cattle. So, it's not like grazing was 30 years ago. It's a new ball game, and done so much better. Yeah.
And I think, as we talk about moving to the future of raising animals and animal health, we're also surrounded by this sort of future of energy with these wind turbines everywhere. So tell me how you decided to host wind on this property.
Actually, they came to me because there's a project in a couple townships here that were doing 90 turbines altogether. And because we're up on a hill, it's extremely windy, and so it was.
My hair's all in my face right now, but
that's why they picked this area, and we thought, that would be a good fit because it's. You see, the windmill they don't take up much extra space. The roads where we're standing on here was where I had cow lanes before, so they're actually an improvement over what I had, without taking any extra space, and the cows have a better place to walk on, and. There really wasn't any downsides to it. It was just improvements.
There was extra income probably for you. First of all, how important was that income to you?
Actually, it was crucial at the time because we just had some health problems. We just went through another year of extremely low milk prices, and we were basically having trouble with the bank. We needed a way to refinance. And the fact that we could say that we're going to have this income coming now for the next 30 years helped say, yes, okay, we'll do the refinance.
So it helped keep you on your farm.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Do you ever have people say, why would you host these things? They don't belong on a farm or in a Wisconsin landscape or any of those other things.
Well, I never said when I was a young kid, every farm still had the frame left from the windmill. Every farm had windmills back then, and you had your average farm was 80 acres, which means a farm this size, in this area would have been a couple different farms. You'd have two windmills just right there, and across the country because everybody had cattle in those days. Everybody had windmills, so you'd look out, and all you see is windmills. So, so really, it doesn't change that much from 50 years ago.
That's a good point. The windmill and the farm kind of like went together.
Right.
We're standing. I don't know. I'm not good at judging distance. How far do you think the closest windmill is?
That's only maybe an eighth of a mile over to that windmill right there. Yeah.
Do your cows? They don't seem to be worried about it.
Oh no, never. Yeah, they walk right underneath. In fact, they like on a sunny day they'll stand underneath the shade from the window because it's a nice long column of shade, and so they'll stand there.
You told me one story about they all lined up in the field.
So, right. Yeah, I come out to get the cows one time, and I'm thinking, why are they all standing in a perfect line? They never do that. They're just spread out usually. And then when I got closer, I realized they were all standing in the shade from that windmill.
I think we do hear a lot about wind turbines. That they are hurting your health. There are piles of birds under them. All those things. That I think when something new comes around or a new version of something, it can be a little scary. What has your experience been? I mean, do you see wildlife being harmed by the turbines or feel any ill effects, or your cows for that matter?
Yeah, no. In fact, the interesting thing is we've never had eagles in this area before. I mean, they were close by with the Fox River close by. But I think they kind of migrate up the river, and we see them in this area now. So if they were killing birds, I don't think we'd see eagles moving in. I don't know. And the other thing, the deer. I mean, I had a neighbor to the back at that time who thought it was just going to be it was going to scare all the deer away. And that particular night, that was when they were first building them. They just had the bases up and the part where they're going to bolt the windmill to. And it rained, and so there was some water in the middle. I see a deer walk up and drink water off of that base. So just because it looks different, it still wasn't even scaring him away. So
I feel like deer are not scared of anything.
Yeah, no, we still have just as many deer here as we always did. So
when you talk to other farmers, I imagine at some point you've talked to other farmers who are interested in hosting wind turbines because it's such an important source of income. What are the kinds of questions that you answer?
Actually, I don't have too many other farmers ask about it. It's usually people that are non-farmers, and it's usually their biggest concern is, I think it's got to be so noisy. It's noisy in our neighborhood, and like I said, the closest one is about 2,000 feet from my house. I said on a foggy day, if you're outside, you can hear it. You go in the house, close the window if it's on that side, and you don't hear nothing. So it's just not an issue.
Yeah, because you were telling me a story that on a day like today, and it's a little humid and cloudy, but they're not particularly noisy. But when it's foggy, you do hear it a little bit more because of tell me why?
So, because, there's moisture droplets in the air, and so the blades hitting those moisture droplets actually is what creates the noise. It's, banging into those moisture droplets. I had an engineer explain that to me that I knew. So, and it makes perfect sense. So that's why when the more moisture in the air, the louder it gets.
So I think you can say there is a noise associated with wind turbines. They're not totally silent. And on foggy days, there's a bit more noise, but you've been okay. Yeah.
On a day like this, once you get by the buildings, you can't hear them. 2,000 feet away, you don't hear nothing. Yeah. I hear more noise from the highway half a mile up.
So it's interesting because you're doing something that is old, right? You have cows out grazing on the property. You have windmills, just like a farmer 200 years ago might have.
Right.
But do you feel like kind of like the modern version of that farmer?
So definitely it's a new and improved version. And I think obviously I'm a Christian, and so I always think I've always tried to keep those values in what I'm doing. And so I'm instead of fighting with God's creation like corn farmers have to do, because it's a monoculture that doesn't exist in nature, monocultures. You've always got to grow stuff. Well, I don't have to worry about that. Pastures, anything grows out there. The cows eat just about anything except a few weeds. But I don't have to use chemicals to kill it like they have, like crop farmers have to do. I don't have to worry about insect problems. If there is any insect, I don't grow a lot of alfalfa. That seems to be the most problem one anyway. But there's such a variety of things that if there's an insect that attacks one species, it never can attack all of them. And so there's still always plenty growing there. So I'm working with nature instead of having to fight it, and it just saves a lot of work and a lot of money.
How big of a kind of revelation was that for you to go from sort of conventional cows on concrete, monocrop agriculture to where you are today?
It took a little time to accept that. 'Cause like I said, the experts said that doesn't work. But the more I saw it, the more I said, this is great. And I've been, like all grazers, we try and promote it every chance we get to try and encourage farmers to switch if they would. But even like anybody new coming in, especially if they want to have a dairy farm, we say the only way you're going to do it is with grazing, because you can't invest in those big farm operations like the big ones have. But you can graze, you can even rent land and start grazing cows. for practically nothing.
You make it sound so easy.
Well, I said, compared to the conventional system, I think it is a whole lot easier, yeah.
Well, it's true. We've been standing here chit-chatting for 10 minutes, and the cows are eating, and the calves are out there, and, it feels like they're just taking care of themselves.
So, yeah. And as now we switch to beef, the calves just stay out there, and the cows. And yeah, they're just so healthy. When you have animals in confinement, that's when you have a concentration of organisms that can cause disease and spread through the herd. But when they're out here in the wide open with the air blowing through them, it doesn't happen. Even when I first switched to grazing, when we had the dairy cattle, we put calves in hutches. We tried putting them out on the pasture on grass. And calves, they're being young, they have a little more susceptible to having health issues. And sometimes you treat them with antibiotics, but I tried a couple times. I would have 2 calves, they were both kind of sick at the same time. I'd treat one, the other one I just moved the hutch to fresh grass. And moved every day to fresh grass. And the one in fresh grass recovered just as fast, if not faster, than the one I was treating. So I think there's just something antiseptic about grass that just keeps bad organisms away. and the cows just do better on it. That's just my opinion, but it just seems that way from what I've observed.
No, I mean, that I think a lived experience says a lot. So, I know managed grazing is starting to become more popular in Wisconsin. Like, what would you want to see for the future of farming in this state?
Oh, yeah, I would love to see a whole lot more dairy farmers switch, a lot more small farmers start up again and do the grazing. The biggest problem now is that milk processing places don't want to mess around with small farms. So that's almost the biggest challenge now to a small farmer starting out. But yeah, the grazing group, I belong to the state grazing group. They've started a grazing apprenticeship program to help young kids that want to get started. They work with a grazer over 2 years and learn the method, and they can either take over that farm or then the farmer will usually help them get started on another one. We've expanded that program. There was a grazing school in Madison for a while. I'm not sure if that's still going yet or not, but yeah, that's all stuff that we've worked with to try and get more people in doing things this way.
I want to come back to the wind turbines a little bit. It's pretty windy here. You mentioned you've never seen a day when these wind turbines weren't, unless it was too windy, but when it was not windy enough for these.
Occasionally there'll be a few days when they're off, but it ain't very often. And they're running a lot. They estimate that there's when they built them, they told us they figure they about 33% capacity is what they anticipate to get out of the windmills, and they said it's between 35 and even 40 every year since they built them.
So you've got plenty of wind.
So yeah, even better than they expected.
I do want to talk a little bit because we do hear a lot of, this is the closest I've ever been to wind turbines. We walked right beneath one, which made me nervous. And you weren't nervous?
Oh, no. Yeah, no, they don't bother me at all. I've seen them build them. They're solid. They're not just going to fall over.
But so there are a lot of myths because I think people can rarely get up this close to wind turbines. So do you see, for instance, piles of birds under the wind turbine blades?
Yeah, no, I've never seen that. I have seen a couple occasionally, but yeah, no, I don't really see a whole lot of problem. Like I said, we've got birds all over the place around here. The smaller birds, I mean, even hawks. We've always had hawks around here. They fly higher. So we have eagles now that we didn't have before. They fly higher, and so yeah, it doesn't seem to be a serious problem. They seem, maybe they're just smart enough to detect the motion and stay out of the way. I don't know.
They're not moving very fast, I'll say.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, they're only 14.4 RPMs, so that's pretty slow.
All right. Well, you got the knowledge. I guess when you live among wind turbines, you learn all about them.
Yeah. When they built them, they for every day for once a month they would get us together and they would give us some basic information about them, so we would know more about them too. So we're not asking questions and stuff, and then we that we're comfortable with them by knowing more about them too. So yeah, they were very good about educating us. And if we had any, they always had a hotline number. If we had any concerns, any questions, we could always call and they would respond right away. And so yeah, they've been very good to work with.
How often have you had concerns?
Really nothing too serious. I know one time I went out one morning and I'm thinking, that windmill's making noise. That sounds like a bearing going out if it was a piece of my farm machinery. So I called them right away, and yeah, sure enough, they were out an hour later, and they had it shut down. They were up there working on it, so apparently there was something wrong. But yeah, we caught it. Same thing with equipment. You catch it quick, you can usually fix it easier too. But yeah, no, we haven't really had, I guess there was one way over the other way that had a fire. I think it was probably lightning that did cause it. They're built south. We had a tornado go through the woods, actually. So they've been really close to these two windmills here, and they unaffected. There wasn't any problems. There's trees down all through the woods and a big one over there, but the windmills were unaffected, so they were built to handle that. I think my wife said one about being out in storms, and, when you're out in the open on a tractor or something, worrying about getting hit by lightning. And I said, I'm not too worried about that anymore. I got these 250-foot lightning rods all around the farm.
That's true. It'll be them first.
Right.
So if you could say anything to somebody who, is either thinking about, because you had these two cool things going on your property. You've got really happy-looking grazing cows and calves, and you've got wind turbines that's kind of helping you do this, helping you stay on the land and do this. If you could tell somebody about why it's important to do these things, I mean, what would you say?
Yeah, I think it's a good use of the land. I mean, certainly the grazing is by far, as far as I'm concerned, the only way anybody should be having cattle. I mean, I know a beef farmer on the other side of town here that's got, he doesn't even know how many cows he had when I asked him, and he grazes everything too. And he said too, we got to work together because most people don't understand us. It's just a much better system in so many ways, and it's the experts. Actually, part of the problem is these conventional farms, they buy seed every year, they buy chemicals every year, they buy fertilizer every year. We buy next to nothing of any of that, and so they don't want you doing it because they can't sell stuff to farmers. I got this picture of a farmer with overalls and there's hands in every one of his pockets. And I said, that's what it's like on a conventional farm. I don't have that anymore. I got rid of that. Nobody comes and looks for me for money because there's nothing they're going to sell me. And the few things I do need, I've got good people I work with, and they understand what I'm doing. And so yeah, it's just so much better. And yeah, the windmills, they were just a nice addition. They said we gave us nice roads. They don't really interfere with much of anything. The people that we work with, they bend over backwards to accommodate for me. In fact, they said most of their farms, they'll just run, to save money, they run roads directly from one windmill to the next. For me, they actually bent the rules a little bit and put them where I already had driveways and cow lanes, and not have to cut across where I had fences. And so they said they were really very accommodating.
And plus, you talked about the hands in the farmer's pockets and buying things like chemicals and things like that. We were talking, plenty of birds now and pollinators here. Like there's all kinds of native plants and grasses growing. So
right, yeah. For a while there, I think every day for a month I picked a different flower I'd find out in the pasture and take it home to my wife because there's just that kind of a variety. I see just taking pictures of this weed right over here that's got really pretty flowers on it. So.
That's great, and the cows like to eat everything but thistle, I guess.
So yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there's much. They go for burdock right away, actually. So, yeah, and yeah, they'll eat the buds and blossoms off of flowers for the extra sugar that's in them, which is good nutrients for them. So yeah, it's. And I said it's rotated through, so it'll be a month or more before they come back to the same pasture. So by that time, everything's kind of grown back and doing fine. We're not the old permanent pasture style. They said they grazed good stuff until it was dead because it just couldn't handle constantly being eaten off every 2 days. But this system is just like mowing hay. They graze it off and then it grows back.
Well, Jerry, thank you so much for bringing me out on the farm and showing me this kind of beautiful space and really talking about your philosophy about the land and how to be a part of nature instead of fighting it. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm always glad to promote grazing.
And thank you for listening to The Defender. If you like the show, please take a second to rate it and leave a review or comment on your favorite podcast platform. It helps other people find us. And for more information on wind projects in Wisconsin and how you can plug in to help support them, visit cleanwisconsin.org. I'm Amy Barrilleaux. Talk to you later.